Chapter 24 of Her Love from Above. The Penguin. Madison looked at herself through the mirror in disgust. "I'm going to look like a penguin," she fussed as she pulled the black habit tighter against her body and gathered it at the sides. She couldn't count the number of times she had made fun of nuns dressed in habits, and now she was wearing one. She turned sideways and examined her reflection more thoroughly. No, she didn't look like a penguin. She looked like a piano. A nun's habit would never look decent on her, but she wasn't trying to look good. She was trying to hide her identity. She pulled the white collar over her head, settled it squarely on her shoulders, and grabbed the black and white veil accompanying the outfit. After positioning it on her head, she again examined herself in the mirror. She looked ridiculous. "No," she decided, speaking out loud. "I look like a piano-sized penguin. This is worse than ridiculous." She let out a deep sigh before closing her eyes and turning her face upward. "Me, in a nun's garment." She cackled in laughter as she stepped back from the mirror. The nun's habit was the only disguise she could find with such short notice in this ridiculously small town with nowhere to buy wigs. Besides, what good was it having a wig if everyone in town could testify that you were searching for one? Neither of the two scarves she purchased would work because one was made from some itchy material that drove her crazy, and the other cried out, "Hey, everybody, look at me. I'm trying to hide my identity." She stepped closer to the mirror. Most people would ignore a nun wearing a habit. The only problem was that if someone looked twice, they would see her features quite clearly since the habit brought all attention upward and straight to her face. She tugged at the veil, putting it lower on her forehead. Her face was still visible. She draped the wings of the veil forward and bowed her head. Since she couldn't see how she looked while looking down, she snapped a horizontal selfie. When she checked the picture, she raised her fist in triumph. It was difficult to see her facial features if she kept her head bowed like she was praying. "Perfect," she snorted. Who would question a praying nun? "Don't you need to be getting back for the reading of the will?" Johnny asked Charlie as the latter placed clean clothes on the chair in the recovery room. "No, you're about my size. Claire had me bring these so you'd have something to wear that wasn't all bloody." He stepped around the monitoring equipment and faced Johnny. "Paige is currently unavailable, so we decided to wait." "We?" Johnny questioned, his voice sounding tired. Charlie's eyes glistened. "Buck is Auntie's attorney, so we can deal with the will whenever we want." Johnny's mouth dropped open, then his eyebrows furrowed. "That's right. Buck told me that, but I'd forgotten." Charlie's expression turned jovial. "It's not as if you haven't had other things on your mind." "I don't get it," Johnny voiced. "Buck was there the entire time. Why the wait?" "It was Auntie's request. Initially, I didn't understand her reasoning, but it makes perfect sense now. Auntie had seen Paige only twice in the past many years. She was hoping she'd changed, but she wanted to make sure before she gave her any control over Haven's Rest. Auntie figured a few days at the lodge would tell the story, one way or another." "What story?" Johnny asked as his eyes roved the ceiling. "In the past, Paige hated visiting Haven's Rest," Charlie explained. "She thought the place was beneath her and counted the ministry as a joke. Buck and Jenny were given complete say over which of us, me or Paige, would inherit Haven's Rest. Auntie knew I would keep it going, but she also knew I was awfully busy. Since Paige doesn't have a job, she was hoping she'd changed and would be willing to oversee the ministry and help it grow." Johnny tried to not laugh, but failed miserably, causing himself to clutch his midsection in anguish. "Man," he whispered, between the gasp of agony that followed, "I wish you two would quit making me laugh. It's another dimension of hurt." When he was able, He moistened his mouth with a piece of ice from a nearby hospital cup and then handed it to Ava. She was numb from exhaustion, but, like a robot, turned and placed the mug on the movable stand beside the table. He marveled that she was still able to think after the events of the previous night. With great effort, he focused his attention back on Charlie. This conversation needed to end so she could return to Haven's Rest for some much-needed rest. Paige overseeing Haven's Rest. That's priceless. She did have a realtor coming today to value the property, and she has a buyer lined up, someone who wants to turn Haven's Rest into a ski resort. She doesn't care when other people hurt. I don't know how often she's mocked abused people, saying, if they were stupid enough to marry the person, they deserve what they get. Fury covered Ava's face. Like an abusive person has a sign on their forehead warning, don't marry me because I'll beat the crap out of you on a continual basis. Ed was the nicest man I'd ever met until we were married. Then, a few weeks into the marriage, all hell broke loose. A lot of people think like her, Charlie said, noticing the anger overshadowing Ava's face. They don't realize that the abuser pretends to be the nicest person in the world until they catch their prey, that they become the person their intended victim wants them to be. Anyway, I guess Auntie was hoping the years had changed Paige. And the heirlooms? Johnny asked. They are family heirlooms, and she wants them to stay with the family. They're only to be sold in the extreme case that Haven's Rest needs the money to survive. She's found 2 museums anxious to show them for a consignment fee. It's not much, but steady income into the ministry is always a blessing. Museums? Johnny responded. Then they are historical and valuable. Yes, Auntie knew they had been in the family for at least 2 centuries, but apparently they've been passed down much longer than that. We've heard murmurings of being descendants of a royal line for as long as I've been alive, but I've never put much stock into those types of rumors. I guess this time they're true. Those jewels were originally given to a German king as dowry back when dowries were required for marriage. The king passed them on as a dowry for his eldest daughter when she married, and they've been passed through our family line ever since. How'd she find that out if they were only murmurings? Ava asked. She remembered a great aunt always telling her to stand straight because you're royalty. She never thought much about it until she had the jewels valued. After seeing them, the appraiser suggested she contact some museums for further evaluation. The curator of the second museum did some research and offered a consignment fee to show them because they were long-lost jewels from one of the German dynasties. He found pictures of the jewels in an ancient book with their history included, and a genealogy check of that history matches our family tree, the von Hoschinsys to be exact. Johnny's eyebrows crinkled. Can descendants from the throne of Germany take them back? No, Charlie said. For one thing, they were given to my ancestors as a gift, and Auntie was able to verify that. Secondly, anyone from the German line of royalty is just that, from the line of royalty, just like we are. We have more right to them than anyone else, given the fact that they were gifted to our family by the king himself. Wow, Ava exclaimed. It would have been a shame if Paige had sold them. Not many families can boast that kind of history and have evidence to prove it. Charlie shook his head. I guess not, but that doesn't matter. All this means is that someone in our history usurped authority over others and set himself up as the leader. Hopefully, it was because he was a good person who wanted to help others and not an evil one who wanted to control them. I'm not digging any farther into it because I'm afraid of what I might find. Wait until Madison hears about this, Johnny groaned. She already thinks she's better than everyone else. Now that she can boast a royal lineage, no one will ever hear the end of it. Huh, Ava said with a slight grunt. At least you won't have to listen to it, because she won't be in your life much longer. A wrinkle scrunched between Johnny's brows. Did she really hire that guy to kill me? Charlie's expression turned somber. It's been verified. The detective I spoke with has no doubt. She called Allman's office from a phone booth in front of the local bakery. The bakery's security camera caught her making that call. Also, they found a security camera recording of Alma answering a call from an old phone booth traced to Alma's cell phone, and another security video of him hurrying through a nearby store. Joffrey claimed that the call was Alma informing Alman that Madison was right and that Jenny did live at Haven's Rest. It didn't take any persuasion to get Joffrey to fill in the missing details. There's no question that Madison wanted you dead so she could collect the $5 million insurance money on your life. $5 million? Johnny screeched, his pitch so high it sounded strange. I'd off myself for that kind of money. Goodness no, my insurance policy is only $1 million. That was changed last year, Charlie corrected. The insurance company says you've been insured for $5 million for 11 months. Johnny's eyes lowered as he took a deep breath. She's been planning this for nearly a year? Ava stared in awe, her face revealing anger. I've known some wicked people, but this takes the cake. I'm sorry, Charlie said. I really am. Johnny was devastated. He no longer loved Madison and hadn't for some time, but that didn't make it easier to learn she'd been planning his murder all along. Ava hugged him and whispered, I'm so sorry. Please don't let her hurt you anymore. You're a wonderful person. Anyone with half a brain can see that, and Madison's proven herself to be a piece of scum, a stupid one at that. She's not worth the pain. I second that, Charlie agreed. She's my niece, but she's never been a good person. Even as a child, she got everything she wanted and did anything she could to hurt people. I witnessed it over and over again. All that girl ever cared about was money, possessions, and being the center of attention. That obviously hasn't changed. You deserve far better than that. You deserve someone who loves you. Shame shone in Johnny's eyes. Who would ever love a broken man like me? I have nothing left to offer. That's not true, Ava exclaimed. It's not. It is, Ava, he argued. No one wants a broken man, especially one forced to work crazy hours to pay maintenance to an ex-wife who tried to murder him. He looked at Charlie. She'll take me for every penny I have or can make for a decade. No, she won't, Charlie countered. When they find her, she's going straight to prison, and you don't pay maintenance to someone in prison. The room grew somber as Johnny considered Charlie's words. Finally, he said, If that job's still available at Haven's Rest, I'd like to take you up on it. His voice was raspy as he added, I think I have a lot of healing to do. If I can help build Auntie's ministry in the process, all the better. Wonderful, Charlie exclaimed. Johnny needed to stay at Haven's Rest for his own healing, but his talents would be a tremendous blessing. It's still available, and you'll be paid for your work. It might not be as much as you're making now, but it will be a fair wage for this area. Johnny nodded as his eyes once again closed. He would work for free for an opportunity to stay at Haven's Rest, so any wage would be more than adequate. Charlie noted the exhaustion in Ava's eyes. Maybe we should be heading back now. You do need to rest. He tilted his head back toward Johnny, and so does he. You need to stay, Ava, Teasel prompted. Johnny needs you here. He would have died last night without you. You need to stay for him, and you need to stay for yourself. Ava grabbed her jacket, took a few steps, and then froze. I can't, she suddenly spouted. You need rest as much as he does, Charlie countered. You'll be stuck here if you don't come with me. Stay with him, Teasel urged. She looked up with trembling hands. "I can't go," she repeated. "I need to stay with him." "I'm fine," Johnny argued. He could see Ava's exhaustion, and even though he loved her company, he knew how badly she needed rest. "I have nurses galore to check on me. You stayed up all—" "I know," she interrupted, her eyes imploring him. "But I can't go. I can't. Please don't make me leave. I'll find a place here to rest, I promise." "Ava," Johnny protested, "you've already done more than I could ever have imagined. We're barely acquaintances. You don't need to stay here. You need to take care of yourself. Go back and rest." "Don't let them talk you out of it," Teasel said. "He needs you here." Ava replaced her jacket on the chair. "I know, but unless you force me to leave, I'm not going. I need to stay." "Why?" Charlie asked, frustration sounding in his voice. Memories of Johnny's blood-soaked sheet swirled through her mind, yet that part of the danger was over, so there was no explanation for her illogical fear of leaving. She considered the number of hours she and Johnny had spent together over the past few days. Without even realizing it, he had made her transformation from Ed's wife to resident of Haven's Rest much easier. He had gone out of his way to help her by moving her into the cabin and comforting her when comfort was needed. She considered that. Perhaps that comfort was the reason she didn't want to leave. Maybe it was her time to comfort him. "Stand your ground," Teasel urged. Ava turned back toward Charlie. "I don't know how to explain it, but I must stay." Charlie glanced at Johnny helplessly. "Unless you kick her out, I think she's staying." "Please, Johnny," she begged. Johnny shrugged as he fisted the sheet in his hand. "I'm not going to force her to leave." With a deep sigh, Charlie gave in. "I'll see if they can bring in a reclining chair. Maybe you can catch a few winks that way." She nodded in appreciation as she swiped her blonde hair behind one ear. "Keep us posted," Charlie told her. "Let me know when he can leave, and I'll be here to collect you both." Johnny found Ava's desire to stay endearing, even though he knew she was exhausting herself beyond necessity. He was safe. There were nurses around the corner and machines monitoring his every breath. She had no reason to stay unless she just liked watching him sleep. Still, guilt crept in, because, even knowing her level of exhaustion, he was glad she was staying. He had not enjoyed a woman's company in years. "I'm sorry," Ava apologized, reading his expression wrong. "I'm sorry, but I just can't leave. You nearly died last night. It's okay," he said, trying to ignore his sudden burst of guilt. "Company's not a bad thing when you're stuck in a hospital bed." A nurse rolled a reclining chair into the room. "Charlie said you could use this, and we tend to agree. It's the most comfortable chair on the floor." She turned from Ava to Johnny. "We'll keep a close monitor on him. Why don't you put this to use and get some shut-eye?" A younger nurse handed Ava a pillow, blanket, washcloth, and towel, with a care package of bathing products lying on top. "Would you like a coffee or something?" she asked. "No, thank you," Ava replied. "We just ate. I'm fine." "Okay, let us know if you need anything." Ava noticed the towel beneath the care package. "This includes a towel," she commented. "Am I allowed to shower?" The nurse who handed Ava the care package chuckled. "That's generally what you use towels for, but let's keep that between us. No one else needs to know. We'd hate for anyone to get the wrong idea about this place." She giggled as the first nurse poked a needle into Johnny's IV catheter. "This will help you get some rest, young man," the older nurse said. "Sleep aids healing, and you need plenty of healing." Ava watched as the older nurse finished checking the equipment and then exited the room. She turned her questioning eyes toward Johnny. "Do hospitals usually do this?" she asked, indicating the towel and care package. "I've never stayed in a hospital," Johnny responded, "but I'm pretty sure they don't. Maybe Charlie had something to do with it. Then again, this is a small hospital in a country town. Different rules, I suppose. Either that, or they know you're here from Haven's Rest." Ava considered his words. "That makes sense," she agreed while laying the blanket and pillow on the chair. She kept the towel, washcloth, and care package. "This," she indicated as she held them up, "is a very much appreciated blessing." Johnny's eyes grew heavy as the medication took hold of his body. "I'd take some of this stuff home if I could," he muttered. "Sleepless nights would be a thing of the past." His words slurred as his eyes shut completely. "You sleep, and I'll shower," Ava instructed as she headed for the adjoining restroom. When she saw her reflection in the mirror, she gasped. No wonder everyone was trying to get her to leave. She looked ragged. Her eyes were bloodshot and swollen, and her hair was a tangled mess. Memories of her previous life flashed back. "You look a mess," she recalled Ed once telling her. "Get in there and wash yourself. I'd be ashamed if anyone saw you like this." She shook her head, numb at the memory. After cleaning out and painting the entire garage while he was away on a hunting trip, all he could do was shame her for her unkempt appearance. "He's gone," Teasel reminded. "Stop thinking about him." Just then, Arden appeared in the room. "She's nearly here," he informed. "I'm going to try to stop Charlie. Otherwise, Ava's alone on this." "That would be wise," Teasel agreed. Madison kept her face pointing downward, and her nerves were tied in knots as she casually walked toward the hospital entrance. Hiring someone to kill Johnny was one thing, but it was proving much more challenging doing it herself. Since her mother had yet to return her calls, she feared Paige had pinned her as the luggage thief, meaning she would never give her money again. That left her with no choice but to carry through with her plans. Johnny had to die. It was the only way she could obtain the money necessary to free herself from the unreasonable demands of other people. She gave a slight growl of frustration. She never dreamed her mother would steal the heirlooms from her, yet she had removed them from the wooden box without her knowledge, thus causing her to play the fool in front of the registered jeweler. Who else would have known they were in the suitcase? As far as everyone else was aware, they were locked in Aunt Bobby Joe's safe. As she neared the building, she noticed the reflection of a nun's habit in the large glass window, which surprised her until she remembered that she was the nun. She shook her head, amused. It was bizarre that she had to wear this crazy disguise to complete someone else's job. But then again, incompetence was a real issue these days, and it was becoming harder and harder to find trustworthy, dependable people. Remembering her role as the nun, Madison gripped the cross necklace dangling around her neck and pretended to be in prayers. When she reached the entrance to the main lobby, a large man's hand grabbed the door handle in front of her and pushed it open. "Ma'am," he greeted. Madison mumbled a quick thank you without looking up, then entered through the lobby door. Before reaching the information booth, she noticed old directions painted on the marble floor leading to the elevator. This is perfect. She didn't need to look up or read a sign to see where to go. She merely needed to follow the yellow brick road, or, in this case, the yellow painted arrows. Her sudden grin was conniving, for things couldn't be going any smoother. When she called earlier that morning, pretending to be a florist requesting Johnny's room number for a delivery, the operator had provided it without question. Now, she was following painted arrows to his location. How cool was that? Madison reached the stairs first, but when she started to climb, the sound of an elevator easing to a stop caught her attention. Her laziness got the better of her, and she backed away from the stairs and turned toward the elevator. She started to look up as the door opened, but caught herself at the last moment. She needed to remember to be careful. This was a small hospital, but it might still have security cameras. When the elevator door opened, her eyes landed on a pair of jeans that stopped just shy of polished but well-worn leather boots. A mountain scene was etched into the letter and circled the outside of the boots. She grew dizzy, almost to the point of fainting. She knew those boots because she had been mocking their preposterous design for days, and only someone as foolish as her uncle would wear such hideous things. Of course, it was always possible that some other man was wearing the same outlandish boots, but that was doubtful. Besides, knowing her uncle, he probably had them specially designed just for himself. "Ma'am?" the man wearing the boots greeted before stepping aside to allow her entrance. "Nope," Madison thought as her heart pounded wildly and heat rose in her face. At the sound of his voice, her hope that it was some other outlandish boot owner fled. There was no mistaking her uncle's deep, baritone voice. She would know it anywhere. How could she be so unfortunate as to run into her uncle while at the hospital to kill her husband?